The war Ezekiel saw before maps existed. Wars usually begin with explosions, sirens, and soldiers crossing borders, but some wars begin much earlier, with words written thousands of years ago. Imagine a man living in exile, far from his homeland, surrounded by fear and uncertainty. That man was the prophet Ezekiel. While empires were rising and falling around him, Ezekiel recorded a vision that would echo through history. It was not a vision of peace. It was a vision of a mysterious leader and a massive alliance of nations preparing for war. In his writings, this leader is called Gog, from the land of Magog, and according to Ezekiel, the conflict led by Gog would not be a small battle. It would be a war powerful enough to shake the entire world. Names from another age. In chapters 38 and 39 of the book of Ezekiel, the prophecy describes an alliance forming around Gog. He would not stand alone. Ancient nations would gather around him, preparing for a massive invasion. The prophecy lists several names: Persia, Meshech, Tubal, Gomer, and Togarmah. To modern readers, these names may sound distant, almost forgotten. They belong to ancient regions that existed thousands of years ago. But what makes this prophecy fascinating is not just the names themselves, it is the pattern. Throughout history, nations have formed alliances for power, protection, and ambition. Empires unite when they see opportunity, when they see wealth, when they see advantage. And according to Ezekiel, that is exactly what would drive this alliance. The invasion would come when the target nation appeared vulnerable, when the moment seemed perfect. The storm approaches. Ezekiel describes the coming invasion using powerful imagery. He writes that the armies would come like a storm. They would spread across the land like clouds covering the sky. Not a small army, not a distant threat, but a massive force moving together with unstoppable momentum. Imagine the ground trembling under thousands of marching soldiers. Imagine cities watching as the horizon fills with an advancing army. To the people facing this invasion, it would seem impossible to stop. But Ezekiel's vision does not follow the normal logic of war, because something unexpected happens.
According to the prophecy, Gog is not simply acting out of strategy. Something deeper is happening. Ezekiel suggests that the invasion itself is part of a larger design, almost as if Gog is being drawn toward a confrontation he cannot fully understand. The prophecy says the invasion is motivated by greed and ambition, the desire to seize wealth, the desire to dominate, the desire to conquer. It reflects something deeply human. Throughout history, many wars have begun with the same motivations: power, control, opportunity. But in Ezekiel's vision, those very motivations lead Gog and his armies into a trap. The day the earth responds. At the height of the invasion, the prophecy describes something extraordinary. Instead of a simple military victory or defeat, the earth itself begins to react. Ezekiel describes a great earthquake shaking the land. Mountains tremble, walls collapse. The ground itself seems to rebel against the invading armies. Panic spreads through the soldiers. Communication breaks down. Confusion takes over. And then something even more shocking happens. According to the prophecy, the invading forces begin turning against each other. In the chaos of fear and confusion, the massive alliance begins to collapse from within. The very army that came to conquer begins destroying itself. Fire and judgment. Ezekiel continues describing the aftermath of the battle. The invading forces are defeated in a way no one expected. What once appeared unstoppable is suddenly broken. The prophecy describes judgment, destruction, and a moment that leaves the world stunned. It is not simply a military victory. It is a moment meant to reveal something greater, a reminder that even the most powerful human plans can fail, that ambition and arrogance can push nations into conflicts they cannot control. And when the dust settles, the world is left watching, trying to understand what just happened. The question that remains: what makes this prophecy so fascinating is its age. Ezekiel wrote these words more than 2,500 years ago, long before modern maps, long before global politics, long before the complex alliances we see in the world today. Yet the story describes something that feels surprisingly familiar: a coalition of nations, a sudden invasion, a massive conflict that seems unstoppable, and a dramatic collapse of the invading forces. Was Ezekiel describing a symbolic story about the dangers of human ambition? Was it a spiritual warning about pride and power? Or could it be a prophecy about a war that has not yet happened? The final question: if such a conflict were ever to take place, it probably would not begin with a single dramatic moment. It would begin slowly, with alliances forming, with tensions rising, with leaders making decisions that seem small at first, until one day the world realizes it is standing on the edge of something much larger. So the question remains: was the war of Gog and Magog simply an ancient story? Or could it be a warning about a conflict that may still lie ahead? What do you think? Is it history or prophecy?